Welcome to today's Yin class. So a little bit different than our other classes. So Yin has three main principles. So principle number one is find your edge. So that means we're finding our pose, but we're not forcing into it at all. Principle number two is holding that pose. So most Yin poses are held between 2.5 to 6 minutes. So we're really getting into a pose. And principle number three is resolving to be still. Okay? So that means we're not fidgeting, we're not wiggling around, we're really just settling in. So today you may want a block. If you don't have a block, a pillow, like a harder pillow, a book may do. We just really need it for one pose. So I'm just going to put it up there and we'll get started here in our wide-legged child's pose. So I'm going to bring my knees, mat width apart, big toes together. I'm just going to sink my hips down and walk my hands forward as I drop my head to the mat here. So here, let's just really start focusing on breathing. Taking nice big inhales and full deep exhales. As we settle in, finding that breath pace. Letting the forearms melt to the mat, spreading the fingers wide, remembering we are finding that stillness. We're not fidgeting. We're trying to resolve to be content here. A lot of Yin lets our mind wander because we're holding a pose. This is going to be a little bit like meditating, where we have to find that resolve to focus internally, focusing on that breath, focusing on that body and the pose it's in. And that's okay if you have thoughts like, I've been here a long time, are we going to get out of this pose yet? Those are definitely natural here. And it's okay to let those thoughts enter your mind, but take a breath to them. And as you exhale, let them go with the breath. Just letting yourself melt here on those exhales. If you can make your only thoughts my voice and your inhales and your exhales, you're golden. If you're still focusing on some other mind traffic, that's okay. That comes with practice. When you lose your weight, just come back to your breath and your body. Maybe if you need a focus point, just focus on each individual fingertip pressing into the mat. Maybe working your way up to each connection point to the mat, into the forearms, the elbows, the forehead, the knees, the shins, those toes. And just focus on those connection points to the earth. And when you're ready, on your next inhale, I'm going to come up to tabletop just to transition here. We're going to bring our knees back, hip width apart. And I'm going to take my right hand, I'm going to flip the palm, and I'm going to thread it underneath my left arm. As I send my hips back, drop the right ear, reach that right arm forward. So we're back almost in that child's pose with the legs, but we are focusing, just pressing the right shoulder into the mat. And again, finding that stillness. If you find you have a little itch, just try and let it go. It will pass. I mention this because I have one on my nose. But let your eyes come close here. Not so I can scratch, but so you can find your center. Again, come back to that breath. Maybe just noticing the sensations here. Maybe in those knees, maybe in that right shoulder. Just seeing how it feels. And letting yourself melt figuratively here in this pose. Keeping that left arm nice and strong. Focusing on inhaling, expanding out through the back of the ribs. Exhaling, pressing all that air out. maybe you're focusing on reaching those right fingertips through. Even if they're not moving, just that little activity here, that little focus can help bring a little clarity and perspective. Don't worry, we won't hold this one quite as long. One more breath here. Good. Inhale, let's come back up onto our hands. Reset yourself, and this time let's take the left hand and we're going to slide it underneath the right armpit, and we're going to send our hips back, reach that left arm forward, drop that right ear. As we reach forward, letting ourselves twist here. And just really feeling this upper body stretch. Letting yourself melt into that left shoulder. Again, you can lift those eyes. Focusing on it. Expand. Those sensations are there. My first yoga class was a very difficult challenge. It's just coming up. Yin helps bring us back within us. Really helps find that inner calm. Which is needed a lot of times these days. I know it's a stressful time of year and just a stressful year. Remember, when you can, take the time for yourself. Just focus and breathe. Take a few more breaths in this pose. Again, noticing any sensations in the upper back or left arm. Just enjoying them here. Just taking note. Remember, we're not feeling pain today, just a deep stretch. Last breath. Good. Let's inhale, untwist. Come back on your knees. I'm going to walk my knees back and bring my elbows. We're going to lower down just a nice little chaturanga here, all the way to the ground. So we're talking about no pain here. So bring the tops of the toes to the ground. I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to walk my hands under my shoulders here. If this is really hard, you can walk the elbows forward, just so this is not as an intense sphinx stretch here. We want to make sure we're not sinking down. I'm lifting up through my shoulders, lifting that chin, spreading my fingers wide, and just release those glutes. Let them be. We're supporting ourselves with the hips on the ground and the elbows into the mat. Pressing up, making sure we're not sagging in those shoulders. Just feeling this in the lower back. Remember, if you feel any pain, you are allowed to move out of it. Yoga is about stretching physically and calming the mind. So we'll never calm the mind if we're in pain. So just focus on breathing here. If you've got anything distracting your gaze, again, Yin is a great practice to keep your eyes closed once you're in a pose. It really helps you bring yourself internally into your mind. Getting a nice little stretch here. Most of us sit the other way, hunching over, so this is a great little stress reliever here. Last breath. Good. We're going to come down onto the ground here. I'm going to show you, we're going to start with the left arm just because that's what's facing. So I'm going to take my elbow at 90 degrees, but I'm going to lift my elbow up a little bit past my shoulders. I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to roll onto my left side body as I bend my knees here dropping the left ear. So find a comfortable position. Your right hand is supporting your body. We're stretching out that head. And this is a pose where you may be tempted to really move. So find that nice stacking of the hips, the knees. And if you want to be a little off with the feet, focus on breathing into that chest. Bring a little pressure through that right hand to support your body. Just, again, finding that stillness, especially in that left arm. It may be tempted to wiggle the fingers, readjust, but really just settle in, unless, of course, there's any pain here. Just focus on breathing, softening the eyes here. That's it. Putting some breath down, not just to the pec, but down your entire spine. A lot of us don't get to lie like this too often. I find the hard surface of the ground actually very comforting. Just see how your spine feels in this position. Let's take a few more deep breaths here. Last breath. Good, let's slowly, we're going to start straightening our legs, roll back onto our stomachs. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to take my mic out here with the right arm. So I'll show you here that 90 degrees, moving the arm up. And then I'm going to use my left hand to roll onto my right side, pulling those knees forward. And finding that position that I can stay for these 2 minutes. I'm working our way into our yin here. 2 minutes is a very introductory time frame. Our next sequence classes will start to get a little longer. Just taking those deep breaths. Again, you can close your eyes, but I want you to focus on coming back to that breath. We've lost taking full inhales and full exhales. That's it. Just letting yourself relax here. Let me feel the sensations in that right pec this time. Again, see how your spine feels here. Is it like one side better than the other? Maybe it doesn't matter. I find I struggle with sleep, but lying on my yoga mat is the best time for me. I could always fall asleep here. Let's take a few more deep breaths here. This nice relaxed position. Just enjoying the sensations here. When you take your next breath, let's walk our left hand forward, straightening our legs, rolling back onto our stomachs here. Alright, we're going to stay on our tummies. We're going to come back up into that Sphinx pose here for a second. Again, you can walk yourself forward if you can't quite hold up a little longer. I'm going to take my right hand and bring it over to where my left elbow is. And I'm going to bend my left knee, and I'm going to grab that left foot. Alright, And this is a pose where you want to keep strong in that right shoulder, but it's also easy to fidget with that neck position. So just make sure that heel is coming to the quad. The heel's coming to the glute. The knee stays in line with the hip. And this is an easy pose, especially since we're holding it, to get a little cramping in the calf. So if that happens, obviously come out of it, reset. But focus with pushing the hips into the ground. I'm not going to hold this one as long because we did Sphinx pose. And we're just working up our yin class practice. Just take a few more breaths here. And just know, as we get farther into the challenge, we're going to have a proper yin class. Alright, let's release that left quad. I'm going to put my left elbow back down where it belongs. I'm going to swish my left hand to where my right elbow was to support me, not sinking down. Bending that right foot and grabbing it however you can. Be just looking a little towards that right, making sure that knee doesn't splay out. Again, if you get any cramping here, like I said, especially that foot, sometimes people get it in the back muscles. Or if you feel any pain in the back, you can come down, resting the head. You don't have to be arched up. Like I said, we're going to take this one especially short for a yin class because it is really hard on the back, especially if you're not used to it. Really just focus on feeling those sensations in the front of that right leg and back those quad muscles. In the last few breaths here. Last breath. Yeah, release that foot. Bring the right arm down. This is where you're going to want that block, potentially, especially for yin. So let's come up into tabletop. Press yourself up. I'm going to bring my right knee to my right wrist. I'm going to swoosh my foot under and walk that left hip back. Where the block is going to go underneath that right hip here in pigeon. Just for some support, whether you've got a pillow, a book, just wedge it up because we are going to be here for a few minutes. So slowly start walking yourself down, maybe stacking fists if you can't rest, or maybe bringing the hands up or coming all the way down. But remember, finding that stillness, even if all of us feel the urge to adjust our clothes, pull our shirt down or whatever, just release it, that thought, and focus right in that right hip stretch. Breathing. Relaxing, melting. Remember, no pain in yin or yoga. We're not forcing ourselves into pigeon, which is why we have our blocks today. When we force ourselves, that's when we tend to hurt ourselves. So just relax here. Take those big deep breaths. Let ourselves melt. I know I usually let you wiggle around in pigeon, but we're finding stillness today, which I know is a challenge. Still got another minute here to send some breath, some love, some energy to that right hip. The only movement should be your lungs inhaling and exhaling, expanding that rib cage and deflating it. Just bring those thoughts just a little internal here. And notice what you're feeling. What this practice is bringing about. Pigeon is our last real pose here. It's a good time to check in with yourself mentally and see how you're doing. Maybe just ask yourself, are you okay? Last breath here. When you're ready, let's come back up into our pigeon nice and slowly. Recenter yourself. Take your block out. You're going to want it for the other side or whatever you have. Curl that left toe under. Bring yourself back to tabletop. Reset yourself up. Left knee to left wrist. Swish the foot under. Bring it to the right. And then lift the right knee up. Walk that leg back. And find yourself in a nice balance. Again, a lot can come under that thigh or the back of the thigh, the glute, whatever needs a little support, and then you can come down again if you want to support the head, maybe on stacked fists, maybe you can come to the ground. It's okay if you're not even on the left and the right. Find your pigeon on this side. We all want balance, we all want to control everything, but in that moment of trying to control, that's what creates our stress. I know it's hard to let it go, but this is your time to let it go and just focus on you and what your body needs. Breathing in some light, some energy, and some love from the universe. Sharing with your practice and your fellow yogis here. Let those eyes close or at least soften. This is your last pose, so really resist the urge to fidget, to move. Just breathe. And I want you to clear your mind here. All thoughts. Let's challenge. I like to picture a white room in my mind. Just bright white, like can't even see any light bulbs. It's just this brilliant white. That's my nothingness. And use that visualization if it helps. And just focus on your breathing if that helps clear your mind. Whatever else works for you. This is your time for you. The last few couple breaths here. You're ready, your next inhale, we're going to come up out of our pigeon. We'll get rid of that block. We'll come onto our knees. And then we're just going to, however's comfortable, come down to Shavasana. Our final pose. I'm not going to stay here long, but feel free to stay here however long you have. Palms facing up, ankles go wide. And let's all close our eyes here. Letting all the expression and muscles go in your face. This is that time for you. We're going to start with a little gentle body scan here. Without moving, just letting some breath starting in those toes. Seeing how they're feeling. Checking in maybe with each and every one of your 10 toes. Just feeling them in your mind. Moving up through the arch of that foot. A lot of people get pain there, so just send a breath there. Let's move up into the heel and the ankle. Thanking it for all its support. It provides us some mobility to move, to do yoga. Sending our breath and love, up our shins, our calves, all the way to the knees. Lingering here on the knees for an extra breath. Seeing how they're doing. Inhaling up through the quads, the hips. Next inhale, see how your spine is feeling all the way from base of the sacrum all the way up to the neck. Take another breath for the neck. Working our way across the pecs, down the biceps, the triceps, into the elbows, breathing into the forearms, then the wrists, our palms, back to each individual finger. Vision maybe them in pairs, like pinkies together, maybe your thumbs, index, middle, ring. Just checking in with them. Inhaling up through the face and letting yourself melt. So hope you're feeling nice and relaxed. Like I said, if you've got more time, you can stay in Shavasana however long you want. If you've got a meeting or life, you can slowly start waking your fingers up, wiggling the toes, bringing those hands to heart center. Thanking ourselves for showing up today on the mat. Thanking our bodies for trying to find some stillness. Trying to forget about fidgeting. Just getting ourselves just to that edge point without too much force. Thank you for our fellow yogis for joining us and sharing in our practice. From the light of me to light in you, namaste.